Freebie Wits, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Analyze and Adapt, Season 2, where I see if a TV series would work in 3 different mediums. Tabletop as in board and card games, tabletop roleplay like Dungeons & Dragons, and finally, as a LARP. Now, if you want to see more content like this, or just want to support the channel, then please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to share as well. Today, we're taking a look at Avatar: The Last Airbender, a name that's blatantly false by the time of its sequel, just like Final Fantasy or the Never-Ending Story, but let's not get into that right now. For those of you who don't know, Avatar is an animated series following the adventures of Aang, an airbender who has to learn to control the various elements on his quest to stop the Fire Nation from ruining the world, more than they already have. Despite its intended audience, the show is well written enough to garner a wider demographic, enthralling us with its satisfying character arcs and growth throughout. Now, it's not my favorite show in the world, but it certainly is in my top 10 of all time, enough at least that I'm eager to make this video. With that all said, let's see if I can turn it into something else, starting with tabletop. Another quick disclaimer before we begin, I will be talking spoilers, so watch out for those if you haven't watched the series yet. Seriously, go watch it, it's good stuff. According to a quick search on the internet, we already have a collectible card game based around Avatar. Now, unlike other card games, players don't actually play with a hand in that, but instead top deck, as the kids these days might say. For those of you who don't know, top decking is when you literally play the top card of the deck. Without actually owning the game myself, I can't say what it's like and can only assume through secondhand knowledge that it's just another dueling card-based game. This might reflect the nature of individual battles in Avatar, but in my mind that's not what Avatar is about, or more specifically, not what it's only about. In the show, the characters travel in a party from locale to locale, completing quests and getting more powerful as the series goes on, literally getting the ability to use more elements as they do so. To that end, I suggest having a large board for the players to travel across, collecting power-ups as they progress before taking on the Fire Lord himself. Based on that alone, this would be a cooperative experience where the players work together to defeat the board, evading the Fire Nation while unlocking the full power of the Avatar. However, that begs the question, what do we do with Zuko? Do we start the game with everyone as friends? Do we have him start as an enemy and eventually become an ally? Would he not even be controlled by a player and simply be a power-up of sorts? Honestly, I kinda like the power-up idea. Aang, to master all the elements, has to find a teacher or an item in the case of water to use a new power. In that vein, Zuko is just the key he needs to unlock firebending. This of course ignores the character growth, his story, and how it all blends together with the world and the antagonists, like his sister. Seriously, she's crazy. So congrats to the Prince of the Fire Nation, you are a MacGuffin. Talk about objectifying people, huh? We literally just turned them into a power-up. This does, however, bring into question of how we should deal with the other characters and players. If such a central character like Zuko has been reduced down to a power-up, how would we deal with literally everyone else? I mean, by that metric, Beifong is just a power-up to unlock his earthbending and make him stronger that way. Well, because I don't want to answer that question properly, I'm just gonna dump that idea and turn the game into something more competitive, with Zuko being controlled by another player trying to defeat Aang with certain conditions, turning him into an ally so everyone can win. Hooray! Jolly cooperation. Now with that all sorted, let's move on to tabletop roleplay. If this was a Dungeons & Dragons game, everyone would be monks with elemental powers except Sokka, who just kicks ass. In all seriousness, even without trying to pigeonhole them into specific D&D classes, we can already see the different roles that each character can provide. Katara is the obvious healer/support character, Sokka is the martial skill monkey of sorts, and Toph is the tough one, Get it? Get it? But seriously, in all seriousness, she provides battlefield control and can see everything coming with her tremor sense. Then we've got Prince Zuko, who is a stealthy combat master, able to be a ninja, dual-wield swords, and throw fireballs all day, every day. And last but not least is Aang, and Aang is a bit of a tough one to pin down. Obviously, he's the most powerful of the bunch with his avatar state and whatnot, but his earthbending is weaker than Toph since he can't do metal, and his control of water is clearly not as great as Katara. I hesitate to call him a jack of all trades because it's obvious that he's a master of the 4 bending styles. He gets A+s in everything. It's just Toph specifically has S+++ because it's metal and whatnot. So he's a master, just not to the extent that his other friends might be. At the very least, he's the best airbender around and thus the most mobile. And yes, I know that's not a very high bar considering he's literally the only airbender around in his series. But role-playing games isn't just about a bunch of people kicking ass and punching things until your problems go away. No. There's also a lot of talking, exploration, and even a bit of puzzle solving to go around. In that regard, Katara and Aang are the more peaceful types, while Sokka at least tries to be more pragmatic about these problems. Toph, once again, is the tough one, no surprise there, and Zuko, having a naturally high charisma but no actual skills to support it, is the awkward, lovable one, kind of, when it gets to the later half of the series. Seriously, the only other character who gets more girls than him is Sokka, and let's be honest, everyone loves Sokka. The fact that the series is so episodic yet having an overarching goal makes it perfect for a tabletop RPG. Each session would have a rough template that would go as such. Number 1. Remind the players of the overarching goal. Number 2. Introduce the new area, town, and/or village. Number 3. Introduce the NPCs. Number 4. Introduce conflict. And finally, have the players be the only ones with agency who then fix the problem and get slightly closer to their overarching goal in step 1. Bam! Done! Tabletop RPG is now complete. Slotted in the baby EG every now and then, and we have ourselves a bona fide campaign. All we have to do now is just start the game with 3 people and eventually make it 5 or so, or just keep it 3 and have the game master play everyone else, in which case that would explain why Zuko and Toph never really get a solo episode in of themselves. It'd be weird if the GM just talked with themselves for 4 hours. Okay, that's kind of a lie. I think Zuko gets a solo episode, but it's more of a flashback, I think. Ah, gosh, I can't even remember. There's so many episodes. I really gotta go rewatch The Avatar. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's go on to LARP. Spellcasters in LARPs are handled very differently depending on the LARP system. However, most of them usually have the following in common. Firstly, they require the user to shout the spell's name. The spell is usually limited in use, and they all have to be balanced in such a way to let non-spellcasters, such as knights and warriors, a chance to compete. After all, if I throw a spell ball at you but don't yell out the spell's name, how are you supposed to know what kind of spell you've just been hit with? Being hit with a fireball is a bit different to being hit with a frozen magic freezing spell and such. Now that said, the world of Avatar kind of tips some of those things on their heads. For one, the show only has a very, very small pool of non-bender characters who can evenly fight or even defeat other benders. Don't get me wrong, there are non-benders in the series who kick serious ass, but they seem like the exception rather than the rule most of the time. Now, assuming non-benders are mechanically balanced, we have to look at the fact that many characters in Avatar fight hand-to-hand or foot-to-foot. Lots of grappling here and there as well, something we can't really do in LARP, so we'll have to stick to thrown weapons and swords, all made with foam, of course. The next thing we have to address is the bending itself. Besides the immaculate and masculine boulder, no one really shouts the name of their attacks before performing them. In a LARP situation, from an outsider's perspective, there's no difference between someone throwing a fireball and a measly magic missile except the name-shouting part. Magic or bending in the Avatar universe is mostly done with hand, foot, or body movements, meaning that if we wanted to make a faithful adaptation of the Avatar in a LARP setting, we'd have to make the spellcasting completely visual. A sort of high-speed version of scissors, paper, rock, really. A stomp, for example, might be a defensive ability that kicks up a column of rock. Raising both hands into the sky might knock the enemy off their feet, and a straight punch would end with a gout of flame in someone's face. In larger scale battles, this would of course be impossible. Attacking someone from behind wouldn't work since you can't see someone performing said moves from behind you, especially if you're distracted with something else. In that regard, the only practical way of doing an elemental bending game is to either make people shout the name of their abilities or to have them fight one-on-one, which might actually work. An entire LARP based in the Fire Kingdom with political intrigue and the like could work, and of course we already know that Agni Kai, a one-on-one duel, is a thing that exists. It might take a bit of tweaking here and there, but it could definitely work. So in my mind, it'd work like a crisis cancel with everyone working together to find the Avatar while propping up their own personal interests and pleasing their Fire King, if only to escape his volatile wrath. In my mind, the climax of the LARP would involve Aang coming in with his friends and blowing everything up, I guess, ensuring that the game doesn't outstay its welcome. And with that, not only is the LARP game done, but this LARP section of the video is also done. So that's my analysis of the Avatar and how it can be adapted into 3 different mediums. How do you think it'd work? Have any of you tried adapting any elements of the show yourself? And if so, how did it go? Consider leaving a comment, liking the video, and subscribing. Sharing it would also help as well. My name is Freebywits, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Secret tunnel, through the mountains, secret tunnel. Yeah.